All right. All right. I'm sure you'll want to watch this later as well. It's just so much fun, especially when there's nobody standing there. But at least it picks up the sound. So that's for the folks who are not here and they are trying to get home safely and soundly. And I hope you either are staying safely and soundly or get home safe and sound. I myself, we are driving tomorrow afternoon out to Massachusetts, out to Cape Cod, which is where my wife's family is from. So we'll be having a nice, cozy, intimate Thanksgiving with about 30 of our favorite family relatives and of the sort out there. So that's that. All right. Today's going to be a bit different. There's a few things I want to share with everybody, and then there's we'll just kind of be working on this workshop. So if you have a computer, that'd be really useful today. If you don't have a computer or some kind of a device to access the web, sit next to somebody who does, and we can move in a little bit to make sure everyone has access to that data. So, all right. The readings for today or for this week, again, they're compressed because we have no class on Thursday. I assume the building will even be locked on Thursday. It doesn't happen too often. But the readings for today were, again, more illustrative examples of how this set of policies, interwoven programs in the UK were functioning. The first chapter we read, kind of what the theories of action were for why you might do this, and from what we saw in the quiz, some of you got this loud and clear. Some of you clearly missed the whole theories of action thing, what might motivate these kinds of policies, programs, interventions at the school, community level. So I'll mention that again real quick. Ellie graded half the essays, I graded half the essays. My hunch is my half mirrored her half as far as, again, some of you got this, some did not. Why it is that they were pushing for or trying to design these full service / extended day schools in England. Two different logics of action. Who's got a sense of one of those theories of action, and why you might begin to do this, why you might design? Now, the details of policies will be different. But what might be one such theory of action that would start to drive resource in the direction of this quote-unquote full-service schooling? Who's got that sense? And I know some of you got this from really beautiful essays, little mini essays on the quiz. Who's got this nailed? Who sort of has it? Who has any idea what I'm talking about? Come on, somebody jump out here. Help us out. Kennedy?
One of them is this idea of saving students from their communities. We need to save them from the areas they live in better places. So that's the expert from outside.
Okay. So this notion that the problem is in the community, and that the parents are ill-equipped to handle their children, the communities are decrepit, violent, dysfunctional, in that we need to bring some expertise from the outside in. And in doing that, we might design a set of interventions, a set of programs in and around the schools, in and around the health department, in and around whatever, parenting, education programs, so forth, that, again, we're bringing the expertise in from the outside. And this is, again, a worldview, a theory of action. And if you ascribe to this theory of action, okay, you're going to make certain decisions about how a full-service or extended-day school might work. Okay, what's the alternative? What's another theory of action that takes on a very different tone, that might drive a very different set of policies?
Like working within the community and using the skills and the resources that the community has to drive change.
Okay, very good. That the community itself has a lot of potential. They've got talent, they've got knowledge, they've got certain types of resources in the community already. We need to give them some other resource, such as dollars or such as whatever, to help the community strengthen. So there's the first notion that we need to fix these decrepit communities. And the other is that we've got to help the communities strengthen, revitalize, and there's expertise really for those decisions for how they should design a full-service school-type set of activities would be found in the communities themselves. We just need to give the communities chances to take over these decisions and push them in that direction. And if they need some dollars, they need some whatever, some facilities, that we can help with that, but by and large, the expertise is in the community. So you can see what these are very different theories of action, okay, kind of worldview logics, and how you, as an outside policymaker, would allocate resources to these two different worldviews. You can see where that would be very, very different. Very, very different. All right? If you believe the expertise is outside the community, there's no chance you're going to just give everybody a $1,000 check in that community and have them, improve their community with those $1,000. Whereas if the second view is of your worldview, your logic of action, you can see that might be a logical way to do this. So as you're reading the Cummings et al. Book on these two chapters I asked you to read for today, or for this week, think about what are those logic of action. Think about the different, the abundance of different little policy decisions, little programmatic interventions, and which logic of action they are in support of, or a result of. All right? That makes sense? Okay, so this question here, I want you to think about resources, how resources can and should be spent. Because the question that comes up all the time is, do more resources matter? And you get people trying to answer that question, do more resources matter? If I give the schools another $1,000 per pupil, is that going to make any difference? If we give the counties additional money for the local family reimbursements, is that additional money going to make any difference? And I think on the one hand, you can sit back and try to answer that question without probing any further. And I would argue if you do try to answer without probing further, you're probably going to provide an answer that is not very useful and probably not very accurate. If you go spending money in a good way, and this does not sound stupid, if you spend money in a good way, maybe money makes a difference. If you spend money in a foolish way, maybe money doesn't make a difference. So we need to understand what a good way to spend money is and what a foolish way to spend money. And if we just generically measure an investment of an additional $1 billion of school aid around the country, and then find that there's no change in graduation rates, one can conclude, well, that additional $1 billion did no good, what a waste. When really there's probably the average covers up all kinds of variation. Go ahead, Dr. Jones, look closer. But go ahead and talk first, then go ahead, Dr. Jones.
I was going to ask you, like, a lot of countries like in Asia, they spend a lot of money on education.
Yeah.
It's definitely high achieving students.
Yeah.
So why don't the US look at that and try to learn why that is the case instead of spending $300?
Yep. So the question, and we hear this all the time, why is it that we spend so much darn money in this country? And in this state, my goodness, we spend over $20,000 per child per year on K-12 schooling in this state. They're spending a fraction of that in these other countries, and their achievement is much, much higher. Why can't we learn from those countries? That's the question, and that's trotted out by politicians all the time, and by local taxpayers all the time. Very legitimate question. All right? There's this vast research literature on this. But my takeaway from that vast research literature, my little short two-minute response to that is this, all right? We tend to spend less than other countries on our on healthcare. Now, in the aggregate, not quite true. We spend a boatload on healthcare. So let's be clear about what I'm talking about. Okay, if you take the total spending on healthcare in this country, it's an extraordinary amount of money, much higher than other countries. So we spend more on education, more on healthcare. All right? But much of those dollars spent on healthcare is supporting people in the final month of their life. There's some amazing stat, like 90% of all healthcare costs, 90% of individuals' healthcare expenditures, let's put it that way, are spent in the last month or two of your life. Okay, where the costs just skyrocket. So it's different. That's individual spending versus kind of governmental spending. So let's look more carefully at how we spend our money. We have the best healthcare system in the world for the most sophisticated medicine in the world. At that level, we do amazing. Rank and file preventative care, we're terrible in this country at spending money on preventative care. We spend a ton of money in our schools on kind of reactions to poor performance in this country. So later grades, we spend a lot of money on remediation. Healthcare, we spend a ton of money on very sophisticated cancer treatments, heart treatment. So it's tons of money on that. Very little on preventative care in relative terms. So what I'm saying is that if we look at how other countries are spending their education dollars, and what I just generically call their social service dollars, healthcare, other family supports, and so forth. Other countries prioritize preventative work and spending money up front. All right? And so when a kid comes into school, their teeth are not rotting. When kids are coming into school, they're not hungry. Their families may be poor, but those kids are not hungry when they walk into school. All right? When kids are walking into school, there's nowhere near the level of violence that we find in this country. So there are other social conditions, socially, generic term, social conditions in other countries, they spend their money differently, that they do not heap those expenses on the schools themselves. We heap a lot of these expenses on the schools, and we do not engage in a lot of preventative spending in healthcare. Now, I'm not the first to say this. Healthcare experts have been screaming about this for years and years and years, and they cannot get the system to change because people like the very visible, very expensive treatments, and we're the best in the world at some of that stuff. Not so with the preventative care. Okay. All right. So I want you to really think about how resources are spent, and this is a good example of whether we're spending money, again, on the early end of things or on the latter end of things. And we spend a boatload of money in this country on remediation at the college level. Students are taking federal loans to pay for college, and they're taking a semester or two, or sometimes 3 semesters of remedial courses, essentially high school courses, and getting federal money to do that. And yet they're not getting any closer to college graduation because those courses don't count towards your college degree when you take a remedial course in college. So we're spending money we're not getting anywhere, as opposed to spending that money much earlier and preventing these discrepancies in the first place. Okay. We are now going to talk today about the allocation of dollars. Okay, you're reading about what those dollars might purchase and decisions of how you might want to purchase dollars. Now, I want you to think carefully how you might want to purchase things with dollars if you were a superintendent, if you were a principal, if you're a state commissioner of education, a board of education member, just a general taxpayer. So we had put up this slide last time, and I just remind us of how it's different for poor communities. And this is, we discussed how we can define poor communities, how we can discuss wealth, or how we can define wealthy communities. And people have asked why is there any money up here? Okay, we know why there's money down here, but why is there red money up here? Why is there white money up here? And so forth. And I want you to have a really good sense of this by the time you walk out today of how this functions.